this whole time I've been talking to myself. Hi, everybody. My name's Elizabeth. Good afternoon. I'm very excited today to be talking about establishing a growth mindset as a first-year college student. I'm Elizabeth. I am drinking a chamomile tea with honey. If you have brought any beverage along with you, I'd love to know what it is in the chat. All right, let's start off with who am I and why am I talking to you? So first, she Elizabeth Johnson inishia, adana and the shinigi a kiani nishla dotsana jana bashishtin, squatchini dasha che dot what a chini dashanella. I got ego at the Nastan, yeah, Twata the Nasha of the Hosdo in Shilhan. Arizona State University de Banishtrand, Native Initiatives Coordinator, Saknista Shishnomish. If you can't tell by my very long introduction, I'm Navajo. A little bit about me is I'm actually a first-generation college graduate. I have a master's in the science of healthcare delivery and a bachelor's in forensic science. Overall, with those 2 degrees, I've gone into the nonprofit sector. I worked for 4 years in higher education retention and recruitment. I worked for Arizona State University in their support services offices at the West Campus. And I'm currently the Native Initiatives Coordinator for SACNIS. That is just a national organization called Society for the Advancement of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science. Outside of my academic and professional world, I am a fur mom. From left to right, it is Luna, Flor, and Courage. All of their birthdays are coming up, so I have to plan their birthdays here pretty soon. I'm an avid crafter, and I would show you my craft desk, but it is covered in undone projects. If you look at the top corner, you get to see I was crocheting a sunflower tote bag. It's not done yet, but it's starting to get some of progress. I'm also a wife. My husband and I, we met at Arizona State University. We graduated with honors recognition from Barrett the Honors College. I graduated cum laude, and my husband graduated summa cum laude. So there's some competition between him and I. I just see now you can see my screen. That's awesome. I've been using the screen, just so you know. I am also a huge animal lover outside of just my at-home pets. I do go to the Phoenix Zoo as often as possible. You can see there, that's Elvis. He's a Galapagos tortoise. He's an adorable little thing. They're also a lot faster than I thought they were. I am an avid coffee drinker, so keep your notepads out or make sure you screenshot because I do have some of my college favorite coffee beverages scattered in my presentation, showing you syrups. I am a scientist at heart because both of my degrees are based in STEM, so I do like taste testing a lot of different coffees, learning the processes, and on top of that, making syrups. As you can see, a coffee enthusiast. I do attend coffee lectures. Really, it's just a local coffee shop that talks to you about the overall process of coffee. And a fun fact about myself is I actually was a professional musician. I played in a mariachi band as a violinist. It was very fun. I get to cross that off my bucket list. I have played music for maybe 13, 16 years. I know it's a huge time period gap, but I actually only started the violin last August. My music career was short-lived, and I'm very happy to say so, but it was a lot of fun. If you like mariachi music or you don't really know what that is, highly recommend getting into it. I'm putting a prompt in the chat right now. If you can, just tell me your name, where you're zooming in from, and your favorite study beverage. If you can't tell, my favorite is coffee. All right, so today's presentation is really laid out in 3 layers. What is a growth mindset, how to develop one, and any questions that you have about what I talk about or what you've heard, I'd love to discuss them with you. Now let's go ahead and get right in. So what is a growth mindset? That's like the number one thing I thought of when I came up with the title was, what does a growth mindset mean? As someone who likes plants, that's all I thought about. But there's actually two different types. It is a fixed and a growth mindset. And when you're going into and learning more about this, try to identify which way you lean a little bit more. And I can tell you that I, for one, have had to evolve over time. So, like I said, there are two different mindsets. One is a fixed mindset, and that's where I'm really going to talk a little bit more on, which is a fixed mindset is that everyone is born with all the skills that they'll ever accomplish. So they look at intelligence. You're born smart or you're not, or you're born talented or you're not. They don't really think it's something that blossoms into something else or something that you can improve on. It's a very static mindset, which means everything is just an absolute. It's either or not. Another big part of a fixed mindset is being ashamed of failing. And that goes miles long, where they don't even try to go and accept new challenges just because they're scared of failing. So mainly they only focus on what they're really good at over what they aren't. Another big thing about fixed characteristics is they don't develop a practice or put in any additional effort. So they don't really establish like, oh, well, I was born to do this, therefore my innate skills should already be there. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I was like this. My mindset when I was going in high school was, oh, I'm just born smart. Like, as you know, conceited as that was, I thought, oh, I don't really have to study because I've never had to study before, therefore I'm just super smart. Or I was like, I'm not going to go into this because I don't know how to do it, so I don't want to fail at it. So there's a lot of personal evolution that I had to go through, going from a fixed to a growth. And a big part of that evolution, like a Pokemon, was taking feedback and criticism. Because in a fixed mindset, when someone tells you you're doing it wrong or you're not doing it the correct way, it feels like a personal attack. Like, what do you mean I'm not doing it right? This is how I was taught. You're doing it wrong, or you're doing it a different way that I don't like. And rather than thinking they're criticizing me off of this thing, this action, this process that I'm going through, the fixed mindset is they're attacking and insulting my intelligence and my personality. Therefore, I'm going to take that and internalize it. And then a growth mindset is, I don't know everything yet. I was born with what I like. I was born and raised in an environment, but that doesn't mean I'm stuck in it. It's dynamic. It's, oh, I don't know this, but I can learn how to do it. Type of perspective on going into stuff. And another big part is seeing failures as lessons and not limitations. So rather than being like, oh, I was never good at drawing, I'll take a drawing class, or I will try it again until I get it right. And that is a part of the growth mindset. Another part is relationship with practice and putting effort into actions. And that really builds into that receptive to feedback and criticism. Being able to listen to other people who tell you, hey, you're doing this wrong, and you take it as, okay, well, how do I do it the right way? You're learning how to do it. Even if you mess up the first few times, you're still working your way to perfecting it and learning how to do it. I can tell you a quick story. Excel was never my strong suit. I just like plugged in whatever formula I could. But I limited myself because I thought, oh, I'm never going to use this ever again, or I'm never going to use the Pythagorean theorem ever in my life, so I'm just going to like push that out of my head. But then I ended up needing to use it. Don't ask me why I needed to use the Pythagorean theorem, but it ended up being a big part of my life now. But that Excel spreadsheet, something that I use day to day in my professional and in my personal life, I had to learn how to practice with it and constantly develop that. And a big part of transitioning from the fixed to the growth is, one, you're limiting yourself, and growth is you're expanding what you can know. I'll talk a little bit more as we keep going about how to develop, like I said, how to develop a growth mindset. It's a variety of things. I believe I have 4 to 5 ways to develop a growth mindset, but in a growth mindset way, this is not an all fix all. I want you to take what I talk about and what I say with a grain of salt, and as a way to reflect, like, what am I doing now and what can I do in the future? I'm seeing the chats now. I see coffee, my absolute favorite. If you have a specific coffee type, let me know. And chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk. Have you tried adding espresso to it? It's delicious. All right. So the first one is embracing failures. I know. You probably have already heard this many times. Be nice to yourself. You are your worst critic. But the reason why everyone keeps saying that is because it's true. I'm currently reading Firekeeper's Daughter. Highly recommend. And this quote really stood out to me, which is, it's hard to let people down and harder still when your expectations for yourself are even higher. We are our own worst critic. We are going to put this limitation on us and say, like, oh, I didn't do that good the first time, so I'm not going to do it again the second time. I would always tell myself, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Like, for some reason, I switched those things around. I did it wrong the first time. That's all on me. I didn't do it, so I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to give you a chance to do it again. But because of that, I ended up making a lot of mistakes. And if you look over to the graphic here, what people see when you go into college, especially in your first semester, which is super exciting, is you're making friends. You went to college. You're the college kid now. Hope you like my movements there. You graduated. Cool. Not everyone graduates. Awesome. You're gaining independence. Hey, I just looked at Ashlyn's Instagram story. Excuse me, Ashlyn. But I looked at their Instagram story, and they're having like so much fun. They're doing all this with their roommates. And that's what people see. But what they don't see is everything under the surface, which is why I really like the iceberg theory. The feeling of not being enough, or feeling homesick, not doing well in your classes, all the all-nighters that will go into studying for a test, and navigating new independence. For me, I was a first-generation college student. I'm also the only child to a single parent, and I was raised in a multi-generational household. Multi-generational meaning I lived in a house with my grandparents and my aunts and my cousins for a majority of my life. So for the first time in my life going into school, I was alone and I had no one else with me. And that probably was the scariest thing I've had to experience. How do I navigate that? And I had to learn how to do it. When I failed my first exam, I didn't want to tell my mom because I was terrified of failing her, which is, it's hard letting people down. And I had put myself up so high of expectations that I was terrified to tell other people, so I started to internalize it, to the point where I was procrastinating on a lot of my exams and homeworks just because I was scared of not doing well. I wasn't having a fun time in college just because I was terrified of failing all of my classes. But the big key factor in that was I wasn't learning from my failures. And I don't want you or anyone else to make those mistakes. So you have to learn how to embrace those failures. And the number one thing, which you're going to think is odd, is to fail. Step out of your comfort zone. I love crocheting now, but if you met me a year ago when I first started crocheting, I was angry. Just because with crocheting you have to count a lot, and I did not want to face the reality that I just can't count for some reason. So all of my crochet projects ended up becoming a triangle or really wavy at some point. And I just kept getting so angry because I kept failing this simple project. But it changed into this point where I would just laugh and be like, I didn't count right. So I had to take it all apart and then start again. And so I was embracing that I didn't do it right. I can get frustrated and that's fine. But as long as I at one point get it right. So stepping out of your comfort zone, I recommend taking on a new skill. I have been a brass instrument player for my entire life, and I decided to take on violin, even if I failed it. And honestly, I really enjoy the violin now. It's frustrating, don't get me wrong, but it's fun because then I now understand where I went wrong, if that makes sense. Procrastination. The reason why I was procrastinating so much in my classes, specifically biology and physics, was because I was terrified of failing the class. I was terrified of not doing it right. So inevitably, I set myself up to fail because I just kept prolonging it and not asking for help. And next was avoid letting fear of failing make your decisions. I, in college, wanted to go into forensic botany, but because it was taught by one of the professors whose class I failed, I was terrified of failing him again. So I just didn't take the class. I avoided him like the plague. Little did I know that he recognized me, and he came up to me and asked me like, hey, like, you took my class and I just like, you're such a bright student. I wanted to know like what happened. And he actually listened to me, which was a huge thing. So don't let the fear of failing make your decisions, because he offered that class to me. He explained it a little bit, and he told me how it would benefit me later on. I talk a little bit more about the extent of what the role this professor played in my life a little bit later. And lastly, use your past failures to inform the present. How many of you are sports people who played a sport? You can put it in the chat. You can use the Zoom reactions to raise your hand. I played soccer, I played volleyball, and I ran track. I was a busy kid. But if you played sports or if you were in music, you kind of learn that you're not going to get it right the first time. Some of us started off in C team and then worked our way up to varsity. Yes, chess is a sport because I don't understand it yet. But you learn that you're going to make mistakes the first time, and they're going to be rookie mistakes. But letting that define your sportsman or athleticism career isn't going to help you at all. It's not going to help you grow. In fact, it just stunts you. So using that as a way to navigate the next time you do it is really important. Oh, okay. This is my favorite part. It's called the power of yet, and I'm going to get kind of TED Talky here. So the power of yet is a phrase that I've heard from Dr. Carol Dweck, and this is what makes me really happy. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Now, I really enjoyed the use of the word resilience in almost anything. I try to remind myself that I'm resilient because people in my family, they're resilient. Out of all of the issues and barriers that they had to overcome, it was through resilience. And because of that, I know you already heard before about self-efficiency. Now, the power of yet is a mindset switch from I don't know this, or I'm never going to get it, or I'm not good at it. But at the end of that statement, you put yet. I don't know this yet. I'm not going to understand this yet. I'm not good at this yet. Now, if you're like me and a little stubborn, I take that on as a challenge. Like, what do you mean that I don't know how to do it yet? I'll show you that I can do it. And that creates that self-efficiency. It's like its own personal motivation of, I don't understand this concept yet, so I'm going to try my hardest to understand the concept. And already you see that personal change, because when you say, I don't know this versus I don't know this yet, one of them sounds final. It sounds like that is the end all be all. You're not going to know this. You're not going to understand it. Whereas the other one prolongs it. It's like, okay, this is my checkpoint where I just didn't do it, but I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to see how far I get. And that's a big part of the growth mindset. And this is actually the big chunk of how to establish it, is changing your mind from I'm not good at this to I will be good at this. Using your current failures as a stepping stone. Now, if I looked back at my very first semester in college, I didn't know how to apply for scholarships, and I actually ended up going into debt for college. I failed a lot of my classes. Not a lot. I failed one class really bad, and I got C's in other classes. But I told you, I graduated. I got a master's degree, and I work. So it wasn't all that bad, right? Well, I used those failures as a stepping stone. When I failed biology for the first time, I went back to my professor and I talked to him and I said, I don't understand this. But what really got me was in that interaction, he kept saying yet. Every single time I said, I don't get this. I don't understand this. I'm not good at this. He kept saying that word yet, and I kept getting frustrated. I was like, what do you mean yet? And then he sent me this TED Talk from Carol Dweck about the power of yet. And we came back to his office and he helped me understand it, and it all made more sense to me. My skills in biology are not as developed, but hopefully one day it will. But using that as a stepping stone helped me understand, okay, I didn't study for this class at all, and I need to learn how to study if I want to pass biology too. If I want to go to medical school, I need to understand this stuff. The encouragement to improve. Like I said, I'm a stubborn person, and once you tell me that I can't do something, I will go out of my way to show you that I can do it. And now with embracing failure, even if I fail, I'll say, well, I did it. So what are you going to say about that? Another big part of Power of Yet is that this is a leadership and a growth mindset. So everything I'm talking to you about right now is not just, oh, I'm going into my first year, develop the growth mindset. It's also going to be applied to your professional career and looking at, I didn't do this correctly, and I have to do it again. And that's it. And letting your boss know, like, hey, I didn't do this correct. Letting your teacher know, I didn't do this, or I didn't understand this. Can you help me? Is a huge part of the yet, because it lets you know, makes you more self-aware and self-efficient. Mentors. I already brought up my wonderful biology teacher. He let me know of my blind spots. He was actually the one that identified that I didn't study or take notes in this class. So he helped me understand how I learned. He asked me, what type of learning style do you have? And I didn't know what he said. I was like, it's smart. I don't really know what you mean by that. That's when he said, you don't know what kind of study style you have because you don't know what kind of learner you are. So he taught me that I was actually a visual learner. So I like words, I like pictures, I also like analogies. So that's how he navigated our office hours, so that I could understand it a little bit better. But I never would have known that if I didn't accept that I failed this class and went back to either another biology teacher, which is what I did, rather than go to my actual biology teacher. New opportunities. I actually was given the opportunity and accepted it to go to Finland to conduct research abroad. Very fun, completely paid, but I would not have known it or even applied to it if one of my mentors didn't really push me to do it. I didn't do very well in my research, but I had that experience and I know how to change that for next time. And my mentors are so wonderful because they helped me with understanding and achieving my goals by setting them. Because I just kept telling people, oh, I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to do this. It wasn't until my senior year of college that I did realize I didn't meet any of the minimum requirements to go into medical school because I didn't ask anybody, how do you go to medical school? So when I finally met with somebody, they actually sat me down and said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, what specifically do you want to accomplish this semester? How will you know that you did well? Like what should your GPA be in this class by midterms? Do you have everything, or do you know what you need to accomplish this goal? How does this connect to your overarching goal, where you want to be in 5 years? And how are you going to accomplish this within this semester? If you can't tell from my use of words, that's SMART goals. And wasn't from my mentor, I would definitely not know how to conduct a SMART goal assessment on myself. And because of that, a mentor is going to tell you a lot about your blind spots, about what you're doing wrong, and offer some criticism and feedback. And I love this quote from Padme Amidala, which is, all mentors have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like. It's the only way we grow. And honestly, in all of my mentors and in my mentees, this quote resonates the most with me, because looking from the outside is easy, but trying to communicate on the inside is hard. I don't know if you've ever had to be in a situation where two people are in a conflict, or you see somebody who's just doing something wrong, but they're so focused that they don't see what's influencing it. So you on the outside, you're trying to help them. That's what the mentor does. They're that third person who sees outside, like, okay, well, you're doing this wrong. Here, let's do this. So mentors are very fun. They give a lot of guidance and a lot of advice. And really how you find the mentors is going up to them, like teachers. A lot of mine were my professors. I went up to them at the end of the first class and I introduced myself. I let them know, like, this is my degree program. I noticed that this is what you're teaching. Do you offer any other classes? I'd love to meet you during your office hours to talk more about what my goals are. So teachers, and also academic advisors, but you can also use your peers. My roommate was a psychology major and didn't take any biology classes. But when I was failing biology and she noticed, she let me essentially explain all of biology to her so that I could kind of understand it the second time I took it. And because she was my peer mentor, she let me know, like, oh, but you kind of, like, isn't this something? And she helped me fill in those blank spots. So definitely mentors are a huge part of this, on top of the power of yet, and embracing your failures, because mentors will definitely try to get you to embrace them as much as possible. And lastly, accepting feedback and criticism. This one's probably the hardest to get, this, at least for me. So I'll start off with the benefits. So one, when you're accepting feedback and criticism, someone's trying to give it to you, they're trying to improve your process. They're trying to make it easier, they're trying to make it faster, or they're trying to help you understand it a little bit better. That's the benefit of getting this. And because of that, you can do your work faster, you understand it a little better, and you can share it with other people. One of the biggest parts of feedback and criticism is emotional and mental self-awareness. So when someone comes up to you and they let you know, like, hey, you're not doing this right, rather than like looking at them and being like, okay, well, what am I supposed to be doing? They'll feel kind of standoffish, which goes into the building trust. If someone can't give you criticism, they're not going to want to work in a team with you, and they're not going to trust being able to tell you this isn't how we do this, or this is not the best way to do it. So the benefits of getting feedback is improving the process, your overall knowledge, positive impacts in your career, academics, self-awareness of your mental and emotional state when you're getting the feedback, or at least knowing how to regulate it. Building that trust within your network, whether that's your colleagues, a professor, a mentor, or advisor, and developing teamwork skills. all great things to put on a resume, by the way. And how do you accept feedback and criticism? Easier said than done, but I'll tell you either way. So one is active listening. When someone's telling you feedback, understand one, it's very uncomfortable for them too. To have to give criticism and feedback to somebody, it's awkward. But understanding that and just listening to receive the information rather than listening to respond to the information is a big thing. So listening to respond is them telling you you didn't do this correctly, and your response is, well, that's how I was taught. Well, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. Or, well, I do it this way because this way and this way. This is kind of a line that you'll have to walk to learn the active listening part, because sometimes they could be saying something that has some value and you just kind of brushed it away. You kind of broke that trust. Next thing, asking questions. I love asking questions. If you ever have been around a child and you tell them like, oh, this is how it is, and they kept asking you why is it like this, why is it named this, why is the sky blue, it's very interesting because they're absolutely curious about what they're doing. So when you're getting that feedback and criticism, be curious by one, asking them questions like, okay, well, why do you do it this way? Would it be easier if I did it this way? Is there a way that we can mesh the two things together? Just asking questions won't hurt, and letting them know that you are listening, one, and two, you're just trying to see how to wrap your own head around it. Three, take notes. I am the type of person who takes a lot of notes. This is for my job, and I have a journal for almost everywhere I worked at with everything that I did, lessons learned, what I did day to day, just so in case anyone told me like, hey, you're doing this wrong, I wrote it down and it's easier for me to remember, because again, I am a visual learner, so writing it out helps me a lot. Self-awareness, we already talked about this. Emotional and mental stability state in that moment, rather than getting super emotional or upset that someone is attacking you, going back to what that fixed mindset is, you're taking that in and you're being kind of neutral about it, because yes, it can frustrate you when someone's telling you you're not doing this right, even though you've literally done it the whole time. I know this, for example, when I wrote an entire paper and someone told me you did it wrong, and I had to go back and rewrite the whole thing. It was very devastating and I was very upset, but it had to be done anyway. So your emotional and mental state play a big part in accepting and applying your feedback and criticism. Again, just to build that trust, to be part of that team. And next, which is where these two kind of take a big part of this, is taking a step back. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When someone gives me feedback and criticism, I do get kind of upset, or I get frustrated, sometimes offended, when someone tells me that I'm not doing something right, even though this is how I've done it every single time that I sent it to them. But taking a step back and just thinking, okay, they're telling me the process is wrong. They told me this thing is wrong. They didn't tell me that I'm wrong or that I'm anything. So taking a step back and just kind of getting it out, and then just redoing it, because you're all there to learn, to progress in your careers, and doing that. But also reflecting, because people will give you feedback and criticism, and I'm not telling you to accept all of it or accept none of it, but there are some where you're going to have to think, do I really want to change this process that I've done? Do I really want to change what I do when everyone else that I talk to hasn't said anything except for this one person? Just trying to level out, trying to balance what is feedback and criticism that I will continue to take, or what is feedback and criticism that I'll just be aware of. So making sure that you're taking that step back to accept and apply all criticism and feedback. Now, conclusion, because we do have 20 minutes and I do have a little bit of a Q&A in case anyone has any questions, is the conclusion. How do you establish a growth mindset? Well, one, it's setting clear goals. When you're doing that, you're also assessing your milestones. Where are you? And honestly, this is a great exercise that I'd like everyone to kind of think about. If you want to close your eyes, not close your eyes, but where were you last year? Were you waiting for the day you graduated? Were you waiting for the day that you got the acceptance letter? Were you waiting for a new car, getting your driver's license, or moving out? All of those things from last year, you've accomplished. You graduated. You're going into your first semester of college. And that is not an easy feat. I will be very candid about that. Were you dreaming of the day that you'd be going to college? Because I can be honest, I was. Where I was a year from now, where I was a year back then to now, I have to acknowledge the milestones that I've made since then. And lastly, guess what? You're there now. What you were hoping to accomplish last year hopefully has been accomplished, especially when it comes to graduation and going to college. You've accomplished them, so acknowledge those things. Because for me, as a first-gen student, I'm not sure if any of you are first-gen, let me know in the chat. But I'm the first in my family. No one in my family had gone to college yet until I came in. So acknowledging that milestone is a huge part. So pat yourself on the back and acknowledge that that is a huge milestone. Next is using failures as lessons rather than limits, excuse me. Don't let a failure stunt you from doing something next. For the same reason why my really botched crochet projects didn't stop me from making a sunflower tote, don't let it limit you. Instead, let it teach you something that you can use next time. Or for me, biology. I failed biology, but I had to retake it. And rather than limiting myself and constantly telling myself, I'm not good at biology, I had to learn, okay, it's not that I'm bad at biology, it's that I'm not really talented in memory retention. So I need to learn a way to develop my memory. And that goes into the power of yet. I'm not good at this yet. You may fail your class. You may get a bad grade on a quiz or an assignment, but don't think that that assignment alone is going to dictate everything else. But also don't ignore it. Make sure you're looking at that test, that assignment, that quiz, and try to learn, what did I miss? How can I improve? And what does this mean? Next is identifying mentors, because they are the ones that will identify your blind spots. They will let you know, hey, you didn't do this, and because you didn't do this, you're going to have to go and retake the class. Like I said, I wish I found a mentor who was in the medical field much earlier so that I could have gone to medical school a lot sooner. And lastly, and this is the biggest and the hardest part about gaining a growth mindset, and that's accepting criticism and feedback rather than responding to the feedback in a negative way or like keeping that inside of you and taking that as a personal attack. Just use it as like, okay, well, I need to get this done. They're telling me this is how they do it. Maybe I should try it, or maybe I don't. Just trying to find that balance of what is good criticism, what is criticism that I need to be aware of, and what is criticism that's just criticism. Okay. All right, we have about 15 minutes. Does anyone have any questions about what we talked about, what a growth mindset is? I see we have a couple first-gen students, some sports people. Perfect. Have you ever had an experience having to accept criticism? Is there a mindset that you already think you're leaning towards? Is it more towards the fixed or is it more towards the growth? Okay, I am going to switch over and show you all a really cool assessment. I'm actually going to put this in the chat and it'll be linked for our viewers later on. But this is Carol Dweck's, Dr. Carol Carol Dweck's growth versus fixed mindset. I don't believe this is the official assessment, but this is what I was able to find online so that you can identify where you lean. And the best part about assessments like this, especially self-assessments, is you have no reason to lie. Just putting in whether you strongly agree, strongly disagree, and then you're going to tally it all up here as to where you are. And it'll let you know whether you're strong growth, just a growth with some fixed ideas. Like I said, growth mindsets are dynamic, so it's not going to be a static position. You're not always going to be a growth. You're not always going to be a fixed. And they are personality traits, really, on top of that. So don't think that, oh, it's a bad thing that I'm a fixed mindset. But being aware of it is the best part. I see we have a question. How can I cultivate a growth mindset after experiencing a situation just a year ago? I had all my possessions, but due to inflation, I lost everything, including facing a rent increase for my apartment. Well, one, I want you to know that is a very hard thing, especially with me talking about growth mindsets and positivity when we're experiencing something that is not positive. Losing everything in my experience, it's hard to have to grow from it. And I guess for me, not trying to sound as if toxic positivity is the way to go, but just acknowledging you lost everything. You lost your possessions, I guess I should say. And now you're facing a rent increase. A growth mindset is really thinking, okay, where are my resources? I know there was already a presentation on that. Looking into where you are now, are there housing assistance available? How do you apply for those housing assistance? Can you connect with the community and see how that happens? I know here for Phoenix, we have the Phoenix Indian Center. I'm not too sure if in your area you have something very similar, but finding those things, connecting with other people, not being ashamed of this situation, because this is a situation that is shared with other people as well. And personally, I would say mourning the possessions that you have. Me, I am a very sentimental person. I enjoy my knickknacks and things, and I could not imagine losing that. I would have to take a moment and just mourn my items, if that makes sense to everybody else. So cultivating a growth mindset when everything feels so static in a situation that just feels like it won't change. Understand it is a process. It is an evolution, and reaching out, trying to find assistance. If you're going onto campus, talking with one of their resource advisors or an advisor in general, and just letting them know, this is what I'm experiencing. Especially with this level of stress, that can impact your academics a little bit. So letting your teachers know, like, this is the situation that I'm in. Can I get a little bit of patience with it? That's also another growth mindset, is understanding that everything is not as it is and will be for the rest of time. This is just my situation right now, and I'm trying to improve it. But I'm really sorry that you're going through that. My throat is a bit dry, so I hope you don't think I'm giving a TED Talk voice, but I'm really sorry about that. Is there another question? Yes, yes, you can. You can talk to me here. There is a QR code, but if you are on your phone, like how I usually am. Oops. I'm putting the link also in the chat. Hopefully that works. Yes, thank you. I know that there is some. Oops. Get this. Thank you. Okay, this is going into the chat right now. So if you want to talk to me, share more about your experience, feel free to follow the link in the chat, or you can go back and do the QR code here. I invite everyone who is also watching this back. You're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. My email is there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm not very popular on Twitter, so maybe you can change that. And lastly, I'm going to be ending this talk, and there are no more questions. Thank you so much for attending this conversation with me. If you have attended today's and the two others this week, make sure you're filling out your surveys because those are some pretty rad prizes, I'm not gonna lie. The potential of a Fire tablet, a gift card, you have no idea how many cups of coffee that I could buy, headphones, and a grand prize of a Lenovo laptop. I'm also putting that link there. You can also go to the Native Pathways Instagram. They'll have the survey link in their bio, and you can also go to my Instagram link for the survey link as well. But thank you all for attending. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording. And if you have anything you want to say after the recording is ended, feel free.